Hello, my name is Jared Cundler, and I'm a doctoral student from Portland State University. And this is my poster that's going to be looking at social dominance orientation, or SDO, which is the degree to which a person prefers based inequality and dominance, and looking at that as a moderator of the relationship between trait mindfulness and prejudice. So for this poster, I define trait mindfulness as the degree to which a person can attend to their present experiences in a non-judgmental way. So a recent meta-analysis found that trait mindfulness actually had a small negative relationship with both prejudice and intergroup conflict, but the results were mixed, so suggesting the possible presence of moderators. SDO could be one of those moderators due to differences in underlying values, such that those high in SDO tend to value dominance and hierarchy and status and power, whereas those low in SDO tend to value equity. So given that mindfulness tends to be associated with greater value and goal awareness and alignment, and those differences in values based on those high and low in SDO, mindfulness might predict greater prejudice for those with high SDO, but less prejudice for those who are low in SDO. So this all helps inform my research question, which looks at whether the relationship between trait mindfulness and prejudice depends on one's levels of SDO. So this project was a single survey-based study using an undergraduate sample of 448 people, and measures, so one measure, the 5-facet mindfulness questionnaire, that was included as a measure of mindfulness. The SDO-7 was used to measure SDO, and then feeling thermometers and racial policy support were two measures of prejudice used in the survey. And policy items include, for instance, support for affirmative action in hiring and reparations for slavery. And for the analysis, moderation analyses were conducted using Hayes process macro to test the hypothesized models. And as you can see in the bottom left corner of the poster, there is my proposed simple moderation model there. And so I was testing different versions of that with different outcomes. And so I've got 5 different models here that I can show. So looking at my first table in the top middle section, center section of the poster, you can see from this table of moderation results that the SDO FFMQ interaction is significant for 4 out of 5 outcomes, specifically not being significant for support for a border wall at the southern border. So for simple slopes follow-ups, if we jump down to the second table in the middle here, so simple slopes follow-up analyses for the significant interaction showed that for warmth, mindfulness predicted more warmth for those low in SDO and less warmth for those high in SDO. And then for the 3 policy support items that were significant, mindfulness predicts less support for the 3 equitable racial policies for those high in SDO. So all this suggests that SDO might moderate the relationship between trait mindfulness and prejudice. We do have some consistent results here, relatively consistent results. So these results suggest that the relationship between trait mindfulness and prejudice and policy support might depend on individual dispositions like SDO. And further, trait mindfulness might be a tool that influences how we think without necessarily, or I guess in this case is related to how we think without necessarily changing our underlying thoughts. So trait mindfulness might be a tool that can help people act in the ways that they want to act rather than necessarily changing one's thoughts. So although this is all stuff that could be gotten at much better with a causal design, and that's something I'd like to look at in the future. So this finding also echoes prior work using trait empathy in the Chen and Jordan 2020 paper, which found that for those with low trait empathy at baseline, mindfulness intervention actually predicted less pro-social giving. So it shows that mindfulness may not necessarily be associated with positive outcomes, at least in terms of prejudice and maybe pro-social behavior. So that's my spiel. So thank you very much for attending, and have a great conference. And a special thanks to my advisor, Dr. Kim Khan, and the whole GRASP Lab team for all their help on this. Take care.